Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for logging into our virtual event here at Stone and Chalk. Today, we are going to be talking about leading high-performance teams through the crisis. So we have pulled together three, actually, I don't know where I got two from, three incredible speakers who are going to be sharing their insights on this topic. I'll let them introduce themselves in a moment, but a couple of housekeeping things for you. This is, of course, a virtual event, so if you have questions, just use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and you'll be able to see others' questions as well. So just run through them, check if someone else has already asked your question, and we will absolutely make sure that we try to get to all of those, but no promises. So there will be also a short survey at the end. This helps us make sure that we are delivering value and hitting the right topics for you guys in the future. So please make sure you fill that out, give us some feedback, let us know how we did. So for those of you who are new to our virtual space, Stone and Chalk was founded in FinTech in 2015. We are a not-for-profit organization, and our mission is to nurture, connect, and propel those who are seeking to solve the world's most challenging business problems. In this sense, our founders, corporates, and industry partners, along with investors and mentors, are shaping the future together. We have a proven track record in developing successful growth businesses and support frameworks for the founders in emerging tech sectors. So we are no longer just in FinTech. We are now in additional sectors, including space tech, prop tech, health tech, and ag tech. So today, our three speakers are Maria McNamara, the CEO of Advance.org, Katherine McConnell, CEO and founder of Brighte, and Anne Moore, work futurist, culture and capability specialist, and also founder. So I'm going to ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves so you don't have to listen to me talking this whole time. Let's start with Maria.
Hello, and thank you, Cheryl. Hello, Anne and Katherine, and everyone on the call. My name's Maria McNamara. I'm the CEO of Advance.org. Advance is the platform that connects global Australians with one another and with Australia. And we do this in order to accelerate greater collaboration, investment, and innovation. We also showcase the successful Australians around the world in order to inspire the next generation of leaders.
Thank you for being here today, Maria. Katherine?
Thank you. Thanks, Cheryl. Hi, everyone online. So Brighte was founded in 2015 at Stone and Chalk. So we started our journey there, and we were there for about a year and a couple of months. We are trying to solve some of the world's big problems. What Brighte is, it's a marketplace. We work with businesses at the point of sale, and they are working in markets such as energy, solar, batteries, and home improvements. And we've created a finance tool that helps them instantly on the spot provide their customers with a finance solution. And thank you for having me here today.
Awesome. Anne?
Hi, Cheryl. Good morning, panel. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Stone and Chalk. So I've spent way too long, an entire working life, looking at skills building and capability and culture. My background is that I'm a social scientist, so I'm really interested in evidence-based approaches to understanding how we can improve productivity. About a decade ago, I got really interested in the future of work and what long runways looked like. And so this recent set of events has been really interesting because it brings forward a lot of the challenges that we thought we had some time to address. So looking forward to talking about all of that and how it impacts high-performing teams. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Now, the panelists were meant to answer a question as part of their intro, but obviously they missed out on that one. So I'm going to ask it now and just come back around again. If you could just answer the question, what defines a high-performing team for you?
Okay. Would you like to reverse engineer that? I'll kick off.
Sure thing, Anne.
Okay. So a high-performing team is a team that can consistently deliver on the results that are expected for the organization and for themselves. So there are certain attributes that go with high-performing teams, and one of them that we're all experiencing at the moment is high levels of autonomy, high levels, we hope, of purpose and alignment, and delivering sustainable income, impact for the organization over time. So the collective of the organisation leading to the impact and performance of the company.
I think I'm always in the middle then, if we're reversing it. So I'll go second. Okay, so what defines a high-performing team? It's something about it, Brighte, I always talk about high-performing teams. We're definitely one, and coming from Macquarie Bank, I've always worked in one. I believe that the organisation has to understand and buy into the company mission. You have to enable your team with tools so they can be owners in the business. And then you have to run the company on an ongoing basis in a transparent way. So everyone in the organisation can clearly understand what's happening, and it really assists them with buying in and into the mission. And then finally, you need accountability and ownership. So one of our values at Brighte is call the ball. And so something we talk about always is, you know, if you see an opportunity within the business, you've got to call it out, you've got to catch it, you've got to run with it, and you can't drop the ball. If you need to pass it, you need to call out to the person, I'm throwing you the ball, you know, and then when that person gets it, they've got to say, I've got the ball. So it's all around, you know, accountability and ownership as well.
In addition to all of that, my focus in most of the high-performing teams that I've led or been a part of are two elements: one, love, and two, trust. And by love, I mean that it is about building a sense of unity between the teams so that you're on the same page, you're solving the same problem, that you're not pulling against each other. And in terms of trust, it is the implicit understanding that someone's got your back and that you're there to serve. So without the trust, high-performing teams fall apart.
Awesome. That's great. I was just taking a couple notes on that so I can make sure we capture all of these amazing things that you guys are sharing with us today. So thank you. Maria, maybe let's just touch a little bit on, I know we've talked about this a lot. And of course the crisis is still surrounding us. So I would like to just start with a poll. We've already done this before to some of our audiences, but I think it's really important to continue to poll people to find out what's happening so that we can report that back to, those people like government and industry who can actually help action those things. So we're going to launch a quick poll here. So the question is, what has COVID-19 meant for your business or organization? So the options there are businesses generally as usual, businesses on hold, and opportunity to pivot. So if you have a couple seconds, just jump in there, let us know. This is really important because things are changing so quickly. So even the one that we did last week on another webinar session could absolutely have completely different answers. So while you're doing that, and we will share the results of that once the results are in. Maria, can you maybe just share a little bit about what your thoughts are around how people are connecting globally and how this has forced to change how we connect?
So the best thing about this disaster is that we are far more connected globally than we've ever been. I had planned a 5-week trip where I was going to go and visit a handful of people in New York, on the West Coast, in Washington, and also in Europe. And I don't have that sort of pressure on me now, and I've met 3 times as many people. We've dealt with issues quickly. Everything's compressed in a Zoom call. I've met people that I otherwise wouldn't have met. So the world is smaller and far more connected. It's joyful.
Sounds like there's a lot of positives there, but I think that maybe there are some negatives. There are definitely some negatives as well. So maybe we'll come back to that, Maria. And I'd like to ask about what you think this has caused change within leadership and culture. And pre-COVID, we had predictions about the future of work. What do you think has changed now based on that?
Thank you. I share Maria's sentiment about the opportunities that we're seeing now. There's a lot of focus on the negativity, but I think that optimists amongst us and pragmatists are saying, okay, we are where we are. How do we navigate from here? And that's a really exciting proposition. I think that the COVID situation has been a catalyst that has accelerated what we're likely to see in the world, given what we see as future work trends. So we know that there were 5 key drivers of advanced technologies that were going to change the way that we work. All the predictions say that. The timelines are vary depending on who you're talking with. What we've seen is where there is will, there is an opportunity to change things very quickly. So if we think of this as a biological situation that has been imposed upon us, we've been able to respond to that very quickly. The opportunity to work from home was less discretionary than we've ever thought that it would be. And yet we've adjusted to that with reason and margin very, very quickly. We've changed our ways of transacting very quickly. And I think that if, to use an example, if we had a situation where we said, as of tomorrow, there'll be no more fossil fuel, categorically, then we'd probably all be driving, electric cars within the matter of months. So the acceleration of the way that we view work and the way that we organise ourselves to work, I think has been profound, and it's a precursor to the sorts of things that we're going to see in the future of work. You've got organisations like Twitter coming out and saying, moving forward permanently, you're not required to come to work if you're not customer facing, which in Twitter is nobody. And so, we're seeing changes in retail. We know that retail was one of the first sectors deeply impacted by technology, and we're seeing shifts now to happy little shoppers all online. So the transitions and transformations that are going to be required in those sectors that are trying to transform, and I see sectors in 3 flavours. We have, I see businesses within every sector in 3 flavours. We've got emerging companies, we've got high growth companies. So you could think of those 2 as startups in all the emerging technology areas that we've talked about and that we deal with at Stone and Chalk. We've got high growth, scaling up companies like Katherine's. And then we've got the businesses that are desperately trying to transform themselves. They're businesses that are dealing with legacies. So the environment that's been imposed upon them is really noteworthy, because the other 2 sets of guys, the emergings and the high growths, were already on the curve towards the future of work. It's the opportunity sits with existing companies to transform themselves, get rid of all the legacy stuff, what they saw as the immutable, immovable objects, and shift them to the side going forward. The secret for high performance is going to sit in that.
I think it's really interesting that you mentioned the Twitter thing, because obviously we've all seen that on Twitter, that announcement was made. And I'm really personally curious to see how many other tech companies follow or don't follow. So Katherine, I'm curious, what is your position on this? Have you changed permanent policies into the future for your company?
Well, we all underwent a lot of change. So we have a back office in the Philippines where we had about 35 people. And so as we were going into remote working in Australia, what happened was there was a military enforced lockdown there. And so our staff couldn't work. So some of them we could get access to laptops, but working in a BPO, there are strict requirements there around data security. So some of them we were able to give access to laptops, but more than half of them weren't able to work. And so we then very quickly had to, take those jobs back to Australia, get everyone. So people who were, product managers or marketing managers all of a sudden became customer service support in the contact center. So it was very quick. And so, we were running around Sydney just on those last few days before it went to like more of an enforced isolation, remote work. We couldn't get headsets. We couldn't get any of the tools we needed to make our team contact center, people. So it was really hard, but we were really lucky because, a lot of the systems we'd put in place had enabled us to be fully remote. So calls could be answered, you know, whether you're at home, whether you're in Sydney, whether you're in Manila. So it really showed that we'd had the right platform in place, and it was a great test for our systems to be able to, you know, show that we could have, you know, work anywhere. You know, now that we are all remote, it's largely BAU for us. We did experience a bit of a bit of a decline in application. So where consumer confidence had a bit of a dive at the end of March, start of April, we did see some of the customer applications for credit decreasing. That's largely picked up. We're back at the start of March levels. What we did see was a really high number of customers calling in who were concerned, what happens if I lose my job? And so at that stage, they hadn't lost their job. And in fact, we've only seen just a little over 1% of our customers being impacted by COVID hardship. So it's unbelievably low numbers. And so we were able to hire a few more people in the Sydney office to be able to support those customers, you know, that were experiencing hardship. But for us, it has been BAU. We've focused. There are a few areas of growth that we were looking at scaling up into new products. So we kind of put those on pause and decided just to focus on, you know, on key areas and to conserve our capital. And we did take a bit of a doomsday scenario about what the future would look like as far as customers being impacted by hardship, not being able to pay, you know, customer applications reducing. And so, you know, we put new business plans and budgets in place to be able to navigate away through what we thought could have been a 24-month downturn. So it's been a really interesting period for our business. You know, a huge learning curve. I think the senior leadership team worked remarkably together. The company's adapted remarkably. We're starting to have a transition back to work from the 1st of June, which will see us going in the office 1 day a week. And we'll be back in the office at the end of July, 4 days a week. And something that we're taking as a COVID souvenir is we're going to have a company-wide work from home day every Wednesday. And so everyone's pretty excited about that. And it's, you know, we've had lots of things that we've liked about working remotely, and we want to take those with us and really ensure that those great ways of working, being more strategic and being able to work 100% remote, like we retain the ability to be able to do that.
I think it's really interesting that you said that your leadership team worked really remarkably well together. What are the attributes of your leadership team that you think allowed them to do that?
What was amazing was in other teams that I've worked, people think about themselves, their career and their progression up the ladder. But what I thought was so remarkable about our team when we got together was it wasn't about, we had to lay off about 25% of our people. And so as the leadership team, when we got together to be able to have those conversations, no one was saying, no, I'm not making those cuts. I'll only do it if you do it. And just, it was about the organization. It was about, you know, it was about supporting the organization. We're going to do what's best for the organization, and just how everyone went into that meeting with selflessness and just, you know, supporting the mission and the long-term survival firstly. And then secondly, just the empathy. So the empathy that was shown in understanding that what we were doing was tough. It had to be done for business survival, but the impact that was going to have on those people. And so how we thought through having those conversations, the precision, you know, and how we'd be able to do that in a way that still had respect for those people. I think being able to make the tough decisions, people were willing to do that. And it was really hard. We all recognized how hard it was. Yeah, but there was a lot of empathy and compassion. So,
Katherine, times like these are tremendously difficult for any business owner, let alone one that relies so heavily on the goodwill of its people as it's growing its business. So all credit to you and the team. I'm sure it's not easy for the people who've lost their jobs, but by the same token, a strong Brighte can come back even more powerfully in the future. So, and it's interesting because the role of the board was important to us. So we found when it became obvious that things were changing or the economy was taking a hit, I worked on the basis of no income, because 50% of our funding comes from government and 50% comes from a major event that we could no longer host, because I can't have 500 people sitting in a room in September. And so we had to find alternative means of generating our revenue in order to secure the future of a very lean team, because we were midway through a transformation. And the board's support in all of this was fundamental, because I needed to know that I had runway guaranteed to be able to finish the transformation and grow during a pandemic. But when I started on the positive note, the pandemic allowed us, it gave us the legitimacy to be able to connect globally faster than we ever could otherwise, because there was a reason to do so. There was a burning platform. So, for example, when we have our roundtables now, we have guests coming in from all over the world. Our speakers, I had a speaker last Thursday who was from Mount Sinai in New York City, giving us what was happening on the ground. And we had guests from Japan, from Singapore, from Canada. The whole conversation lifted to the level that I'd aspired to, which is a global perspective. And the quality of that conversation changed because it stopped being parochial. And so our ambition for this country is that all startups, all companies see the market as 7 billion, not 25 million. And we're on our way to doing that. The other interesting thing is that, of course, with no travel, people have more time in their diaries. As a result, on the 27th, we're hosting a panel of global leaders in advanced manufacturing. So the ambassador of the Australian ambassador to the United States is going to be there, as is one of this country's foremost business people, you know, Anthony Pratt, who has operations globally, and Andrew Liveris, who has run Dow Chemical within, you know, in a global operation, and then Robin Denholm and Pam Melroy. These are Australians and friends of Australia in global organisations, in established businesses, all the way through to the third generation entrepreneurial businesses. That wouldn't have been, there's no way I could have pulled that together in 2 weeks pre-pandemic. So from the perspective, yes, there are a lot of difficult challenges, and many organisations are facing into them. And the question of, you know, will the customers come back? Will they be able to, will they continue to spend if we have a second wave? What happens when the stimulus is lifted? You know, where will people get their revenue? Where will people get their incomes from? These are all unanswered questions. We don't know. But certainly what it has forced us to do is, as Anne has mentioned and Katherine's mentioned, it has forced us to find better ways to work.
Maria, do you think that some of those, I guess, fast moving and better ways of working will persist into the future? And how can leaders prepare for that?
So I think it'll depend. Yes, some of them, but not all of them. It will depend on how long this lasts. So if we're finding that only 50%, in order to manage the social distancing, we can't have all our employees back in the office, then the remote work framework will have to remain, because and we'll have to improve. So we will have to find better ways to deal with mental health. We'll have to find better ways of time management. We'll have to learn from organisations like Atlassian, who have mastered this and at a global scale. We'll have to acquire all of those skills. So yes, absolutely, they'll last. Also, people are finding the biggest driver of this new world is that you're able to fit it around your otherwise complex life. There's a realization now that you can get the efficiency and the productivity at home. There's no fear anymore. The fear's been removed because it's been demonstrated. And so suddenly, parents of young children aren't compromised by having to spend 2 hours on public transport trying to get to and from work. They can fit their workday in around their families and communities. The children get access to their parents, or if the parents have caring responsibilities for older people, they have the time to do that. So what we're finding is what nobody's missing is the amount of time in commute.
That the strong emphasis there being on mute, in commute. Oh dear.
I think we did get most of that. And I'm really curious because you work with leaders almost exclusively and helping them become high performing teams. So
Yeah.
what do you think that leaders need to do to support their teams? What qualities do they need to exhibit?
Okay, it's a great question. The first answer, I think, Cheryl, is something that has also been imposed upon us, and that is the capacity to let go. In the early days of the COVID situation, in the teams that I spoke with and leaders that I spoke with, there was a great sense of paranoia about how they were going to control what was actually going on. Now, most of us that are working from home would probably understand that they're actually spending the 2 hours that they're saving in commute time, Maria, in Zoom time. So I don't know what the impact will be on productivity, but I think that, whether it'll actually increase productivity, but people are spending a lot more time actually working now that they're working from home, is a general sense of it. You sit into a meeting early in the morning and you forget to have lunch. It's 4 o'clock before you realise that you haven't got up. It also means that, in relation to Maria's comments, that speed is now a major competitive advantage, speed to market. And staying in that market. So a good way to think about this is for leaders to recognise that the metabolic rate of work and interaction is changing. The fact that Maria can organise a global conference in 2 weeks is miraculous. The fact that the government can land greater payments through Job Seeker in the course of 2 weeks, when we've had that public debate for a number of years, talks to will. So that brings us to what I think is bullet points, and there's a dependency here, so there's an order in this. Leaders need to recognise that, in this attribute of letting go, that alignment is critical. That means alignment of purpose, goals, strategy, and will. Maria called it love and trust. So with that, recognising also that ownership is critical to accepting accountability, to Katherine's points. Knowing that relying now on intrinsic motivation in others and in self becomes a critical element in sustainable performance. Connecting and engaging, checking in with individuals, and ensuring that you now focus on how do we become results oriented rather than process oriented. Yes, we need processes to be efficient, but so those, the strongest capacity or attribute of a leader, I think, is a willingness to understand that change is real, not a process that's designed in some senior business school. Change management, I heard a wonderful English academic say that he never believed in change management, he only believed in change the management. So understanding that we need to be open and curious and forward-leaning as leaders. So I talk about moving towards rather than moving away from. So what is it that we as leaders are moving towards? And so how do we liberate people to have the sort of accountability and ownership and to derive some opportunity for building their skills, giving your team opportunities to grow new skills now. Technically, we refer to that as mastery, and belonging, autonomy, skill building, and relatedness would be the 3 key elements and attributes of leaders to practice every day.
And Katherine, I'm curious, is this resonating with you? And if so, what were some of the things that you did to, I guess, foster this type of culture within your leadership team?
Yeah, so we're at a stage of growth now where I've been able to hire experienced leaders. Whereas earlier on in the stage of growth, I didn't have the budget, or we just weren't able to attract that. So I'm really lucky. Fortunately, we're in a different position now. So we've all been through the GFC. One of my teams from eBay, senior role at eBay in San Francisco. So, they've been through like finishing uni when the tech rec was on, and they've been through this change and volatility. So that was really useful. And I'd been through the GFC. I was at Macquarie, in a lending business, and I'd seen what happened. So we had this playbook. We knew exactly what we had to do and the skills that we needed to survive. What I found really interesting was that the people who were younger than 33, so their experience of the GFC was they were finishing university, and I think they were getting some type of spending, and they all went out and spent it and bought computers. And so they're people who are younger than 33 needed a lot of navigation. They didn't understand what was happening. And so what I found was communication has been paramount, like ongoing, but in that initial phase, and it was really at the start of March. So we made the company changes at the start of March. We're a bit of a first mover, I guess. And that scared the hell out of our team. So when we told everyone, like, listen, we're moving on these people, the health crisis is going to be a financial crisis. And so here's what we have to do to survive. And it was from that point when we started talking, I saw the shock in all the people's eyes that were younger, and I thought there's so much we have to do here to bring everyone on this journey. And it is about trust, as Maria says. If you can retain that trust, if you can be transparent, explain why you're doing it, what you have to do, you have to have that buy-in, because when you work remotely, if you don't have that buy-in, everyone's fearful. They won't be operating out of operating out of fear doesn't give you results. And so it's been a really interesting journey in culture for us. And so, my experience has been the senior leadership team has been, through this before, more experienced, but the rest of the business, particularly the younger people, had not. And it's been a huge learning experience for them.
Can I just pick up on the fear thing? Regardless of what the environment is, if you're ever operating out of fear, you're not making good decisions. Because, so for instance, if your leadership is operating out of fear, they're not thinking clearly. If there's a question about their ability to perform their jobs or to step up, then they hold themselves back. What you've got to do with all of this stuff, and this is why I say the trust and the love is so important, people need hope and opportunity. They need it more so in greater doses during times like this. They need to know that that they will come through this, because we have in the past. They need to know that there's opportunity in times of change. And they need to see that you're looking for those opportunities, and you're looking for ways to embrace them and maximize them. If you allow fear to enter and take root, then people will start responding in that way. They'll lose their confidence. They will look to the negative. They will look to batten down the hatches and just survive. That's no way to get through a time like this.
Maria, I agree completely. And it means that when we're fear-based in our thinking, our behaviours follow. And it often means that we either become very defensive, aggressive, or submissive. And neither of those things are going to help us build up our resilience. So that leaning towards, that the real pragmatism, I think, in leaders to say, okay, where are we now? How do we move forward? So it's almost a case of removing the rearview mirrors from the vehicle and just looking at the road ahead, because we spend a lot of time looking in the rearview mirror to use that as a navigation tool. Moving forward.
That's also a really important point for boards and their CEOs. These are difficult times for CEOs of startups, and it's at these times that they're making very difficult decisions, as Katherine has had to, and that relationship with board and chair is fundamental.
I think that's really interesting that you bring that up. And I might just jump into a question from the audience, registration questions, just to make sure we've covered everything. So just to follow up on that, how should leaders decide on the balance between transparency and communication versus protecting their teams from uncertainty?
Okay, can I jump into that? So I think that we're going to rapidly see a move away from what I would describe controversially as a parent-child view of management and leadership to an adult-to-adult It means that you need to be open and honest, because to Maria's point, there's no trust when there's concealing of information. Now, it's okay for leaders to say, I don't know, but transparency has a direct impact on the level to which individuals can be accountable and own. And if we've got people at the front line dealing with customers, they need to be as aware as possible of the circumstances with which they're operating in. So I don't think that the notion of protecting people from knowledge belongs in the new world. I think we have to start having the adult to adult conversations about this is what it means. Organisations have been reluctant to say, hey, you know what? Your job might not be safe. You might not be here in 5 years' time. If we start to say, there are impacts in technology that we're looking at that's going to mean that you need new skills, let's start looking at roads to build those skills, then we're building trust and a better framework, quite frankly, for leaders to operate in.
Cheryl, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
I almost got through a whole webinar without doing it. I just wanted to open it up to Maria or Katherine, just because I do think this is a really important one.
Yeah. Go for it. Yeah.
This is so important in so many ways. I've been contracting for 30 years, so I am accustomed to living with uncertainty. And I think all of my team, the team that we've put in place now, we embraced uncertainty as we entered this transformation. We knew that we were coming into an organisation that demanded a certain set of skills that may change over time. So I think the most important thing is for people to start to rethink their lives and their commitments in a world of uncertainty and in a world of constant change. And the way around that is to manage your finances differently. As contractors, you have 6 to 12 months tucked away in a bank account for the rainy day, because it's inevitable. Every 7 years, there is a disaster. You have to draw on it. Not working that way puts additional pressures on you. You also, to Anne's point, the learning is your responsibility. There is no organisation that puts you through a structured learning program. And so much of the learning that I've done over the last 30 years has been self-driven and often free because you don't have the sort of budgets large organisations have. And when you think about, to the point that Anne made earlier about the 3 stages along the McKinsey 3 horizon, established companies going through transformation will want to keep as many of their staff that suit the new environment as possible and extend their skills in order to remain in those jobs. Many of the high growth companies will be wanting to attract global talent that already has the international networks and the experience, just like Katherine did with her recruit from eBay. And these brand new organisations will need different skills. Again, the responsibility for developing those skills is yours as an individual. Knowing how to access them is where organisations like Stone and Chalk come into play, because having some blueprint, some roadmap is useful.
Katherine, did you have anything to add on that one?
So about change, so specifically, what was the question's evolved a little bit now. So.
It has a little bit, hasn't it?
Yeah.
The question was around how should leaders decide on the balance between transparency and communication versus protecting teams from uncertainty?
Okay, so just like, I think my specific example was at the start, where I identified change needed to happen and there was a high level of uncertainty. What my decision to do was to keep that decision-making process at senior leadership and at the board. And so, and I was reading What You Do Is Who You Are, and I think there was an example there of, it wasn't Steve Jobs, but it was someone, you know, who said, like, listen, they were going through this big transformation, and it was an example of how they couldn't be transparent with that information in that process with the whole company. So they had to quickly change strategies, had to quickly make some decisions, keep that within the senior leadership team. And it's really tough not being, like for me when I did that, and that was specifically with the redundancies, redoing our budget and looking at a new 24-month roadmap. I couldn't be transparent with the team during that week to 2 week process. And that was really hard because I'm used to being absolutely transparent. But as soon as we could be transparent, so as soon as we'd made that decision, we knew what we had to do, made those staff changes, that very second after that happened, opened the books, opened transparency, and any question was, any question could be asked. And so I do think that there are times where you can't be transparent with the team. And as a leader, that's really tough. And so I do think you have to protect the team at times, but then as soon as you're able to, I think it's much better to operate with total transparency.
Yeah. But Katherine, I think that there's a difference here between how we deal with situations tactically and how we deal with them strategically. So in a situation where you've laid down the groundwork, where you've said, I'm going to be as transparent with you as much as I possibly can be, we're going through difficult times and there's likely to be changes. Like that's the sort of, it's not coming out with the whole playlist of the 50 things that you're going to be working on or 10 things that you're going to be working on that you're not able to share in an immediate sense. But it's about having the framework up front, the positioning of trust and openness and transparency is important to us. We are going through change. Heads up, everyone, things are going to be different. So it's about how we, let me just finish that bit. Things are going to be different moving forward, and how we prepare for that is, it's my goal and commitment that I'll be as transparent with you as I can be, as soon as I can be. That's the positioning that comes around transparency.
Yeah, no, and so absolutely, that's how we operate at Brighte.
Yeah,
exactly. And I guess my example there was just a very tactical, very specific, relating to COVID.
Yeah.
But I think just you have to be transparent, and that's what we've always done. But I think there are definite examples where you can't be transparent, and it might not be about COVID. It might be other big strategic changes and decisions that are made at the board level and aren't made, even with the senior leadership team. And so I think it is really hard that whilst there is that period of time where you can't be transparent, I think as a senior leader, that's really difficult. But yeah, it's not the ideal place to operate from, as far as the company.
What I think is really interesting is around dealing with different types of people on your team and adjusting to, different personalities and still trying to give everyone the same support, even though they're very different. So one of the questions that we had from one of our residents, actually based in Adelaide, is that introverts want to work from home and extroverts want to be around people in the office. We realize now that we can be productive from home, but we want to strike that balance. So what are you hearing with regards to how people are balancing post-COVID office hours now that, we can come back to the office, but now some people want to work from home, but others don't?
We're doing a back to base in our backyard. Over this break.
Freudian slip, Maria.
Anything but a holiday. Two of our sons dug a fire pit in our backyard, and the next thing I know, they'd ordered a camping rotisserie. So you can just imagine, beautifully landscaped backyard with this pit and a camping rotisserie. Anyway, we've decided to have the back to base here because it's the central point for the entire team, and the workshop will be run as an activity-based one in the backyard. And it's mainly 1, to reunite, 2, to reset, and then 3, to agree as a team how we're going to work from here on in, because we have members of our team who are living with people that can't be exposed to risk of infection, and we have people in our team who are quite, as you say, introverted and very happy working from home. We also recognise that if you don't connect physically, there's the nature of the relationship changes. And this is where this back to base business works a treat.
So one of the attributes of poor leadership, let's call it management, is expecting to apply a universal frame to everybody, a cookie cutter mentality of, but how do we manage? We need everyone in the office or we don't. I say, coming back to that first point about the letting go, giving people permission, it's all about results. If you can get results at home and you prefer to stay at home and you're remaining connective, then knock yourself out. If you need to be in groups and we're in a situation, we're approaching a situation where we can congregate again, even introverts are finding ways to connect with people. And so are extroverts. By the way, the labelling sort of bothers me slightly, but anyway, it's allow people to be who they need to be to feel engaged and deliver results. It's as simple as that. We don't have to have everyone in one place because we have to come up with a universal principle or policy on we're going to work from home or we're not going to work from home. It's take it as it is, as it's real, and that is be flexible and curious. Why do you want to work from home? Is it because I can't stand the rest of the team? Then you've got something to talk about. Is it because I feel more productive and I'm able to work better? Is it because I'm raising a young family and I'm really pleased that I got the opportunity to see the baby's first steps? Allow people to be who they need to be, provided they're connected and delivering. Be open.
So what I think is really interesting is that in the past, all these large companies have had these reasons around why you can't work from home. Oh, it's not productive. We've had issues in the past. We've done this. And most of those have stemmed from companies either having a fear or having experienced negative impacts of people working from home in the past. My question for anyone really at this point is, do you think that those concerns have disappeared? Are we all just good at working from home now? Or do you think that some of those issues will resurface in the future? Catherine's smiling, so maybe I'll let her answer first.
I don't think they've disappeared. I think some companies are really well positioned to have everyone working remotely. Brighte is a hugely complex business, hugely complex. And I think it is really great to have. I have people coming into the office now. So we said it's all remote, but every day people are just going in because they want to work with each other, want to collaborate. And so everyone's excited to go back. So I think for us, how we're thinking about working remotely, so if I think about February, when I hadn't thought any of this stuff was going to be happening, us having a strategy as a company about looking at how we are 100% remote was not on the cards. And so when I think now, is that our strategy? Like, I don't want to do something reactive to COVID, so we're going to unwind it. We're going to go back to the office. We've always had flexibility, we're going to be more amenable to flexibility, and we're definitely supportive of everyone's circumstances. And I can see the effectiveness of working from home. So I think that doubt has been removed. But I think for bigger companies, I don't think it'll just be an automatic change because trust has been created with COVID. More people have worked from home and they've seen that it does work. I think it has to be a more deliberate strategy that's worked through, not as a knee-jerk reaction to, we've all had to do it. Has it worked? Yeah. And so I think that's how we're looking at it. We're heading back in. We've got this company-wide 1 day a week on Wednesdays, which everyone's over the moon. 2 days in the office, a day at home, 2 days back in. I mean, I can't wait to do that. And so, but longer term, how we think about, is it more remote and, much more flexibility for all roles? I think that's something that we have to think about as a company and a leadership team. And I do think that it is something that we'll start to think about. And I think banks will be quite similar. I think banks will have learnt, that it works, that you can do it, and allow more working from home, definitely. But I don't think it's going to, automatically be X% of their workforces will now be working remote where they weren't in February.
I think you've got to also consider this in so there's the context in the COVID context and the non-COVID context. So let's just talk about the COVID context, because we're not through yet. China's now locked down another 100 million people because there's been a resurgence of the virus, and we're also, as we loosen, there is anticipation that there could be a second wave. So there's the whole management of the resource, particularly with, for instance, IT teams in banks. I'm very familiar with them. And so to make sure that you're able to continue, you've got 50% in the office, 50% home on a rotation, so that you don't leave yourself exposed, pardon the pun. So there's that. The other thing is, just in a practical sense, in order to be able to give everyone the distance that they need, many of the organisations, including Stone and Chalk, are having to cut down the amount of people that you can have around a table. Some organisations are putting up the Perspex dividers. It's actually a return to the future. It's very funny. The Perspex dividers are going up, and so physically we're not going to all be able to fit. The other practical implication is that we can't all go on public transport at the same time. We can't, no more than 2 people can go into a lift at the same time. And so there was a calculation done for one particular organisation of 3,500 people that it would take, a good 5 hours to get them all up. So I think there are going to be short to medium term practical implications of not being able to get people into this, into office space, particularly in the city, until some sort of a vaccine or solution has been found. And I think based on the reports that are coming out, we're talking, potentially up to 12 months of that.
12 months is a long time. Sorry, Anne, did you have something to add?
I just said interesting times, and it'll be fascinating to watch how it plays out in real time and what changes we're really going to see.
Absolutely, I definitely agree. Katherine,
yeah.
Katherine, I know that you are, you've been very vocal about the fintech industry and how strong it is. You've said that it's a tough industry. How do you think that the sector could lead the way in the recovery?
I think that fintech has been designed, created because we're solving problems. And so if you look at how financial markets were, fintechs have been created because we're, identifying a problem that's not being solved, and we have a customer-centric focus in how we're solving that problem. And I think how we can lead the way is by proving that the growth of fintechs hasn't been to the detriment of consumers. Everyone thinks, I think we had, we're the 4th fastest growing company in all of Southeast Asia. Was it like 1,449% growth we've had in the last 3 years? And so, and then everyone automatically assumes that, that $500 million of credit applications we've taken in 3 years is because we're doing it because we're working on the fringes and we're harming customers. But what's so amazing is that, the high growth of fintechs is not because we've been working with vulnerable customers, and I think that times like this, where there are hardships, where there are credit crunches, that we can prove that, we've done the right thing by our customers. Our, customers that are impacted are very, very low as a percentage. In fact, potentially far greater than what traditional lenders would be experiencing. That the customer feedback we're getting around, accessibility around information that's being provided to these customers, the NPS and the feedback we'll be getting is very, very high. And so I think it's an opportunity to show that we're here for the long term. We're compassionate and empathetic participants in the market. We're solving problems, and longer term, that growth is sustainable. And I think it's a really exciting story for fintechs. We were founded in 2015. You look at like Zip and Afterpay, they were founded about 3 years before us. And it's a great time now to prove, in tough times, how you can be there for your customers and how you can thrive, not just in the times where, economic conditions are quite strong. And so I'm really excited to be able to, stand alongside, my fintech peers, and be able to prove this. Oh, it's on. There you go.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Catherine. So we are coming to the end. So I just want to give the panelists each a moment to share any final thoughts, comments, or anything exciting that you'd like to share with the audience. Maria?
My encouragement to every fintech is to think global from the get-go. We have a tremendous opportunity because we've flattened the curve. We've got a workforce that's ready and able. There are problems that, as Katherine said, we're solving better than anyone else. And what this nation needs more than anything else is to be able to maintain its standard of living. And in order to do that, we need companies that are creating the sort of jobs that deliver the high-paying wages. And what we also want are the individuals with the skills to do those jobs. If we can get alignment, and if we can replicate the success of companies like Katherine's and the unicorns that have been listed, including, you know, the Canvas and the Airwallexes and the Judo Banks and hopefully soon Zinger and Volt. What we're trying to see is Australia remaking its economy, and what I want to be able to see is more entrepreneurs taking their business global, designing them as global businesses from the get-go.
Yay.
Anne?
Oh, okay. What was the question, Cheryl?
Oh, just if you wanted to share any final thoughts as we are coming to the end.
Yeah, look, I would like to. I think that the navigation of what we're experiencing now and what lies ahead through technology is an interesting and challenging dilemma for every thinking leader. If we, to quote Einstein, if we think we have the answers, then we don't know enough about the question. But I would encourage you, if you're in either the emerging space, the high growth space, or dealing with a transformation of an existing or legacy business, I would encourage you to come and have a conversation with Stone and Chalk about how to navigate that, because we have expertise in what the models look like, how we measure our success going forward. There are lots of tools and things that we can utilize, resources that we can utilize that help us to navigate that. So you don't need to do this alone. There's support out there. And, you know, I just wish everyone all the very best on the journey.
And my 30-second pitch. Okay, so I can't resist. www.brighte.com.au, brighte.com.au. Everyone's going to have been working from home over winter, and we expect bill shock to be a big problem with your heating on, your increased electricity bills, with everyone being at home. So if you've got a house and you haven't got solar on the roof, come to our website. You can get pre-approved for, you know, a Brighte payment plan, and then you can go on our website to our marketplace, and you can find solar installers or home improvements vendors that are in your area, and you can get quotes for free, and you can use Brighte as an affordable, fast and easy way to pay, so you don't have to have bill shock this winter. So yeah, check it out.
Even on terracotta roofs.
Well, it's up to you. It's just, you know, you have to look at your own council DAs, and but we're just the finance provider. So we have, you know, thousands of vendors who are on our website. So we can give you the capital, you know, and a way to pay, and then you can go to our website. We're also a marketplace, so you can get the quotes and you can start shopping via our website digitally. And we've given all of our vendors toolkits for how to manage supporting their customers during COVID. So you can feel quite confident that you can get your home more sustainable and comfortable. And, you know, all of those vendors will have been trained also to be able to support you.
Awesome. Thank you very much to everyone who has joined us today. So I didn't introduce myself at the start. My name is Cheryl. I'm the head of community here at Stone & Chalk. So if you'd like to learn more about Stone & Chalk and what we do, please reach out. You can reach me. My email is just cheryl@stoneandchalk.com.au. You can also just fill in the form on our website, and that comes to our team. So if you missed any part of this webinar, or you'd like to share it, we will be sharing a recording with you, so you can catch up on all the amazing things and insights that everyone said here earlier today. So we'll be sending that out. And also, just if you could help us improve the quality and engagement of our virtual events, please complete the survey at the end. Typical stuff. So thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your week.